Okay. So welcome everyone. My name is Barbara Lewis. I'm the education specialist here at EMPath. Just to make sure you're all in the right space today, our conversation is going to focus on 3 organizations whose services provide and focus on early childhood care and education from different parts of the United States, who are all implementing a mobility mentoring informed approach. These sessions are intended to provide exchange members attending the convening with the inside look at the implementation experience and innovative choices of these organizations. Okay, before I introduce our speakers for today, I want to let everyone know how you can interact and submit questions for this session. If you haven't already, just give me a second, I'm going to let everyone else in. If you haven't already, you'll want to make sure to pull up the Whova app on your phone or computer. You can submit questions through the live Q&A option. It's also the best way that you can connect with other attendees and speakers to explore this agenda. Okay, I think everyone is in. Okay, so for today's session, our speakers will each have 10 minutes to present on their programming, and we're hoping we'll have about 15 minutes left for questions. So meet our speakers. Let me start this presentation. Okay. So to introduce our speakers for today, we are joined with Natalie Vayu, who is the Director of Parenting Education at the Opportunity Alliance. We're also joined from one of our neighbors here in Boston, Boston, Massachusetts, Melody Valdez, who is the Family Mobility Mentoring at United South End Settlements. And our third presenter, and the person who will be kicking us off today, is joining us from Toledo, Ohio. We have Kelly Kaiser. She's the Executive Director at Mosaic Ministries and Baby Universities. So thank you all for sharing your work with us today. And I'm gonna turn it over to Kelly to share her work. And then just a reminder for all of the people who just got on, if you have questions, you can submit them through the Whova app, and we'll have time for questions and answers at the end of this presentation. A few more people just joined us, so I'm just gonna admit them. Okay. All right, Kelly. You're on mute.
Okay, how many times have
One more time.
Okay, how's that?
That's great.
Okay, how many times have you heard that? You're on mute. All right, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Kaiser, the Executive Director of Baby University and Mosaic Ministries. We're in Toledo, Ohio, in Toledo's Old South End. And my husband, David, and I started Baby University about 10 years ago. We'd been working for a couple of years at Mosaic Ministries, which is a faith community in Toledo's Old South End. We hosted church services. We provided community meals we do provide community meals 4 nights a week, and we worked with other organizations in the neighborhood so that there's breakfast and dinner every day of the week for anyone in need in the South End. And we got to know some of the families that we were serving, got to know the kids, fell in love with the kids, and realized that these kids were not going to have the same opportunities as our own children were going to have. And that while it was really great that we were passing out groceries and encouraging families and providing meals, that wasn't going to make the biggest difference in the big picture, and that we realized that we were going to be feeding these children's children in 10 to 15 years if we didn't do something different. So go ahead and go on to the next slide. We did a lot of research on, okay, somebody's got to be doing something about this that's working. And we found the Harlem Children's Zone model. So we decided to create a Cradle to Career pipeline for families in South Toledo. And our why was really that we wanted to see the neighborhood change for the better. And if you want to change a community, you really have to go back to the heart and soul of the community, which is your families. That's the best thing about our neighborhood, is our families. So that's our why. Baby University is the first step of that pipeline. So you can go ahead and go on to the next slide. So Baby University, we started with 10-week parenting workshops. We offer 3 a year. And it's really a place where parents can come on a Saturday morning, tuck their kids into some childcare, and come and meet other parents who are in the same boat as they are, and learn the most recent research on parenting and build their parenting skills. So we normally have about 50 parents in the building at a time on Saturday mornings with their children. Now, because of COVID, we're all online, which has been very challenging, but we're still pressing on. And then the second part of that pipeline is to encourage these families to participate in our preschool. So pre-COVID, we had up to 4 rooms of preschool in our building. So kids in our neighborhood are 81% behind on their first day of kindergarten. So the goal of the preschool is to make them 100%, help them get to be 100% kindergarten ready. And to continue our relationship with the parents so that they have the social supports and everything they need to have a stable family while their kids are in school. We're about to sign an agreement with a K-8 charter school, where we will hopefully co-locate in 2021, the fall of 2021, and be able to offer the supportive relationships to all the parents in the school. It'll bring about 300 more kids in the school, and 300 more families for us to work with as well. So of course, we'll have after school programs, and then we'll work on partnerships for junior high and high school, where we can continue to offer the supports for their families, no matter where their kids go to junior high or high school, and then work on mentoring relationships for college. So really, we want to follow these families from the birth of their first child to their child graduating from college. So next slide. So mobility mentoring really fit in well with what we were doing at Baby University, mainly because we were at a really good point where our families would participate in a 10-week workshop, and then, you can't change the world in 10 weeks. So we're offering programs for graduates to come back on Saturday mornings and learn how to manage their finances, or come back and learn better parenting skills, continue their parenting education, learn how to have healthy relationships. The mobility mentoring informed approach really resonated with us because of the emphasis on executive functioning skills. You really, parenting is executive functioning skills. In order to be a good parent, you have to have those skills. So it fit perfectly with what we were wanting to accomplish alongside with our parents. So And we were a little frustrated because we were doing a lot to stabilize our families. We have a home visiting program, and our community health workers would also visit our parents twice a month and work on connecting them to resources, working on what we discuss in class, having further discussions and things like that. But we would find that we would get a family stabilized for a time, and then they would cycle in and out of crises. So we'd get them connected with safe housing, and we'd get them started in GED classes. But then another crisis would happen, and then they would all they'd go back all the way to square one. So we were just cycling back and forth. So that's really the case management versus case management versus the mobility mentoring, and that mobility mentoring would take these families a step further, and we would get out of that cycle going around and around. Our parents were actually asking for more. How can I be more financially stable? How can I do this? How do I jump the benefits gap? How do I go to school and raise my family at the same time? You know, those are big things. And we really were searching for a framework where we could support our families through that. So mobility mentoring really resonated with us. And we started a couple of years, like 2 years ago, working with families in this way. So go ahead, next slide. We were already had a commitment to be data driven. We used an evidence-based nurturing parenting program. We're very strong on measuring our outcomes and using those outcomes to inform how we did the next session of Baby University. We were already incentivized, not because of any study that we read, but that was the only way we could get our parents to show up for parenting classes, was to offer a big package of diapers. So we just naturally realized that that we needed to incentivize our program. Community health workers were already doing bi-monthly visits with parents, so we already had that kind of relationship going on, and relationships were already established through Mosaic and Baby University. So go ahead to the next slide. So we changed the name of our graduate program to Thrive, and we're offering it to families that have graduated from the initial parenting workshop. It's a 10-week workshop based on building executive functioning skills, and we have one workshop designed for each pillar of the bridge. So far we've got curriculum developed for well-being, family stability, and financial management. We're currently in the well-being one, so for 10 weeks we're talking about well-being and building executive functioning skills around the topic of well-being. So, and within that, what's unique about that is that parents can come together as a group. So what we found with Baby University, we have roundtables, and it's very activity and discussion based. We found that parents were making relationships with each other, and that they were becoming part of each other's support group. So this provides them, the Thrive curriculum provides them for an opportunity to continue their support group more than just 10 weeks, and to build skills together, and start helping each other out, cheering each other on in that format. Plus, they have the benefit of having a mobility mentor should they choose one-on-one. Okay, next slide. Currently, we have 40 parents enrolled on our online well-being workshop. We're doing, they watch a video, take a quiz every week, and then we have live chats every week as well, where they talk about what they're learning and do some fun things in the evening. We currently have 21 parents being mobility mentored, using the mobility mentoring informed approach. Some of the challenges to switching to a mobility mentoring informed approach have been really changing our culture from a case management to mobility mentoring, and training our staff to have really growth mindset language, to have a growth mindset and mobility mentoring culture, to get out of the crisis management mentality, and to be able to craft conversations with their clients so that it challenges them to have a growth mindset and to be thinking about their future. So your program is only going to be as good as your mobility mentors. So we have been challenged by making sure that everyone gets trained and everyone is supported in that role, providing support and supervision and incorporating practice and peer review and all of that into our staff meetings so that we are creating a culture amongst our own team for mobility mentoring, which will then leak out into their relationships with their clients. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Kelly.
Oh, I forgot. I have one
more slide.
Sorry. So, so where are we heading with it? So we're adding to the pipeline with the K-8 school. We want to extend Baby University to the families at the school, and really doing mobility mentoring and tracking that data has opened up more funding opportunities for us. We are gearing up for applying for funding at the state level. We're a small nonprofit, so it has really opened up the opportunities to step it up and build capacity. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So next up we have, sorry.
I think I'm next, Barbara. Natalie.
Yeah, we have Natalie Vayu.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So exciting to be here, and thank you, Kelly. So my name is Natalie Vayu. I'm the Director of Parenting Ed at the Opportunity Alliance, which is located in Portland, Maine. And I'm going to talk about the whole family approach at Opportunity Alliance. Specifically, I'm going to share a bit about our some of our cultural and linguistic adaptations to our mobility mentoring practices. Next, please, Barbara. So just a little bit about Portland, Maine. Some of you may chuckle, but Portland is the largest city in Maine, coming in at around just over 66,000 folks. It is a sanctuary city, or what is more commonly referred to as a safe city now, which means that there is, along with being the largest city in Portland, which means it has probably the most resources and supports to offer, we have a pretty constant influx of immigrants and refugees coming into our beautiful city and adding to it. A couple of other facts on here you'll see is that foreign-born residents have doubled. It's about 13% of our total population, and that at Opportunity Alliance, the majority of our whole family 2-gen work is built within our Head Start programs, and 4 of those 7 are located in the Portland, or what we call the Peninsula area. And that's important because even though it's a 13% total population, just to give you a little bit of a reference point, at our largest center, family center and child care center in Portland, last year, 97% of the families enrolled were English language learners. So, so obviously a lot of diversity. Barbara, next, please. So just to show you a snapshot, this is just our Head Start, not our early Head Start. But as you notice, there are a lot of different languages being spoken within our program. And so we, which is wonderful, lots of diversity. It also meant that we needed to figure out how we could ensure that all of our families were receiving the very best that we could offer in coaching and the mobility mentoring approach. And what is challenging about this particular linguistic and cultural diversity patterns is that this typical strategy of trying to hire staff that are bilingual doesn't really work because there are so many languages being spoken. So we knew we had to come up with a different approach. Next slide, please, Barbara. So in order to ensure that we really could provide the very best service to all of our families, we took a look at all of the 4 elements of the mobility mentoring approach: the bridge, incentives, goal setting, and coaching, and really thought about, put on this lens of what do we need to do to both our tools and our approaches to the work to ensure that we're getting it right with all of our families. And so on this slide, you see a couple of the things that we have done. We have translated the bridge to self-sufficiency into 5 of our most prevalent languages, and also other tools and information about the program. We've also trained interpreters. So because we can't really because it's impossible to have staff that really speak all of the languages, what we've found is that it is essential to train interpreters. That's how we do most of our work with our English language learning families. And so we spent a lot of time training the interpreters on our whole family approach and the tools that we use, because essentially they become partners with us in providing the information and helping us to bridge any cultural or linguistic gaps to ensure that families are understanding what it is that we're providing and have full access to questions and answers. In addition to that, we've also conducted some focus groups with interpreters, some of those interpreters that we use over and over again, to get feedback on the tools and our approach, our coaching approach, language we're using, the phrases, the pacing, and they have provided us with some amazing feedback that we try to incorporate into our work. And every time we have one of those groups, we find out really important information and we're able to go back and adapt. And in addition, we are constantly asking our families that we're working with and other stakeholders, to provide us with feedback, both positive and constructive, so that we can continue to improve our practices. Next, please. So what have we learned? Well, we've learned that coaching is hard, right? We all know this. Coaching is a lot harder than case management. Coaching with interpreters is harder. As you can imagine, it's adding an additional person into that relationship. So you have to be willing to slow down, have to have a lot of patience, have to have a lot of curiosity, and really partner with that interpreter and with the family. So it becomes a bit more complicated. And also we learned that the skills and the tools remain relevant. The strategies might shift, like I mentioned, the pacing may need to change, words, phrases, concepts, but the skills of what that mobility mentoring offers and the tools, they're relevant. And because EMPath has been so generous with allowing us to make the necessary tweaks, we've been able to do that and continue to move this work along. So we've learned it's worth the effort and investment. And you go into it with a curious, open attitude and really think about, the benefits to the family and the work we're trying to do and maintain that attitude. That we've had wonderful success stories already with our families, while we continue to learn and grow from them as well. I would say the most important thing that we have learned, or relearned perhaps, is that relationships are essential. And you can shift strategy, you can shift timing, you can shift goal language, or coaching methodology, but it's about creating a relationship and informing trust and offering the stability of that non-judgmental, enthusiastic cheerleading and coaching. And our families have given us really good feedback about what we're doing with them, and also feedback about how we can do it better, which is wonderful. So that's just a snapshot, and we're excited. We're going to keep going with mobility mentoring and continue to learn and grow. And thanks for the opportunity to chat a little bit this afternoon.
Thank you, Natalie. And just a reminder for those of you who have questions, you can use the Whova app to submit them. Next, we have Melody Valdez from United South End Settlements.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Kelly and Natalie. I will be talking, my name is Melody Valdez, and I am the Family Mobility Manager at United South End Settlements here in the South End of Boston. And I will be talking a little bit about our programs, how we decided to kind of move towards mobility mentoring, and then some learnings that we've had before COVID and through the pandemic as well. Next slide, please. United South End Settlements has been around for a really long time. So we opened our doors in 1892 as the Andover House, the first settlement house in Boston. And the 1890s saw a lot of change in the South End and in Boston as a whole. There were a lot of immigrants and people that were relocating to the city in search of opportunities, as we see now. And instead, what they found was a lot of poverty and prejudice. So the settlement house movement was born out of a desire from upper class men and women to come into impoverished neighborhoods, to partner with the communities in order to strengthen them and lift them out of poverty. So through our 128-year history, we've had to change and adapt our programming and the services that we offered to best respond to our community needs. And more recently, in 2016, we engaged in a strategic planning process. Next slide, please. To really look at the work that we had been doing and how do we move forward, taking into account the changes that were happening in our community and in our neighborhood. To do so, we brought together key stakeholders and community members, staff members, board members, and we had a conversation around the services that we were offering and what were some of the needs that were prevalent in the South End and in the community that we served. And the idea was that through this process, through this interviewing process, through really understanding the population that we were serving and how much it had changed through the years, we were able to sort of adapt our programming to have a program that was comprehensive and really looked at the needs of our community. Next slide, please. Some of the concerns that we noticed through this interviewing process was that there was a need. There was still a need for early childhood education programming, for after-school programming, opportunities for youth, and those were a lot of the programs that we already offered. But one thing that became really clear through the interviewing process is that there was also a need to provide programs and supports for the whole family. And while we were offering adult basic education classes and high-set classes and ESOL classes, we didn't really have a comprehensive program that served the whole family and that really fit the needs of the parents of the children that were enrolled in our program. So that was one of the findings of this process, and what really brought us to revisit our mission to kind of revise the work that we were doing. Next slide, please. So as an organization, we believe that as families stabilize through increased access of resources, as they start to build community and create a diverse network, and start to increase their resiliency, they and their children are more likely to develop skills that they need in order to be successful and start to break the cycle of poverty. So the mission, when we revisited our mission and revised our mission, our focus was to go back to our roots in the settlement house movement and really harness the power of our diverse community. For those of you that are familiar with Boston, the South End is an extremely diverse area in the city. So we really wanted to harness the power of our diversity to start disrupting the cycle of poverty for children and families. Next slide, please. So how did we evolve our program model, and what were some of the changes that we had to do in order to kind of shift our focus? So we understand that poverty is a multi-generational issue. Raising children is difficult for all, but it's especially difficult for parents that are struggling and have a hard time making ends meet. So we also understand that toxic stress, the stress that many of our parents are facing, really affects the development, the brain development, and the executive functioning skills that those parents need in order to move themselves and their families out of poverty. So to meet this problem, we decided to really focus on a two-generational approach, where we were serving parents and their children together, and really strategic about the way in which we were doing that. So some of the changes that we had to make to our program model was, previously, there were 8 points of entry into our organization. So people could come into United Southland Settlements and enrolled in our adult basic education classes, or in our early childhood education program, or our Club 48 program, and there was a different intake per program. So we really moved to a centralized intake process as part of really revisiting that culture, and for any family that entered the organization, for them to really understand what it is that we offer and how we can best support them holistically. We also looked at all of our programs, where our programs really fitting the needs of our families. Could families really enrolled in a class that was Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., or were most of our parents working and needed more individualized support? So we really had to look back and look at the services and programs that we were offering and who we were catering them to. And the idea was, and then we had to look at our social capital building process. Were we creating opportunities? Were we being intentional about the opportunities that we were creating in order to bring our community together to learn from each other and create that reciprocal relationship? So we really had to do an overhaul of our organization and really look at our programming in order to decide what made sense and how do we move forward with this mobility mentoring approach. Next slide, please. So these are our programs as they are today. So we have an early childhood education program that serves children ages 0 to 5 years old. We have Club 48, an after school program that serves children 5 through 13. And that program also has become vital during the pandemic, as now we're offering like full day virtual learning for the children that are enrolled in our Club 48 program. We also have an overnight camp in Squam Lake, New Hampshire, that serves kids from 5 to 18 years of age. So we were really covering a wide range of ages in our youth and really providing intensive programming and services. Then we have a STEAM approach that we infuse into all of our youth programming. And then there's family mobility. The family mobility department has some of the core components of mobility mentoring, and then the engagement piece, which was really born out of this desire to bring our community together for change. Next. So how do we integrate the different programmings or the different services for family mobility? So as I mentioned, we have some of the core components of mobility mentoring, which is coaching. Then we have new strategies that have come out of the need of our community and our desire to really build social capital. So we have parent engagement, which is another one of the functions of family mobility, and then an income support strategy. Next slide, please. So we've broken down parent engagement into 2 different activities. So one is a family engagement night series, which is more of an informal opportunities for parent and children to come together to engage in collaborative activities to build social capital. But they're fun family events. So then we have the parent building blocks, which are more structured skill building workshops really geared towards giving parents some of the skills that they need in order to be successful in their role as parents. So we partner with an organization called Families First to bring parenting education to our parents. We partner with Cooking Matters to really support our parents with how do you cook for and shop affordable, healthy meals for your family. We had a partnership with Planned Parenthood talking about sex and sexuality. And the idea is that all of these activities are really geared towards all of the parents that we serve. And because we serve parents across socioeconomic lines, we really wanted to make sure that our activities were really bringing those parents together with the one thread that we all have in common, which is the well-being of our children, right? Like bringing people together, they have something in common, and then start building that community and start lifting each other's up. And then next slide, please. Then we have the core component of family mobility, which is coaching. The idea of creating these relationships and partnerships with our participants in order to move them forward. And we really focus on career, finance, and family stability. And then we have a new strategy that's also geared towards supporting our parents, and came out of, we wanted to meet our families where they were at. And a lot of the families that were coming to us had immediate needs that they needed to have met. And sometimes coaching can miss that because when you sit with a family and you start talking about what are some of your short-term goals, what are some of your long-term goals, and they have very immediate, real needs that are not being met, like food or housing, it's very hard to get people to focus on that. So Income Supports was born out of that desire to really meet our families where they were at. We still use some of the same coaching principles where we make sure that the parents in the driver's seat, but the idea is to connect parents to resources and really support them in leveraging public benefits so that then they can have the bandwidth to focus on these other short-term or longer-term whole goals that they may have for themselves or for their families. Next slide, please. So how do we measure success in family mobility and in our program? So we focus on 4 pillars. They're employment, financial management, family stability, and then social emotional learning, which are these executive functioning skills that we know are so critical in lifting families out of poverty. These pillars were taken out of the bridge. We still utilize the bridge to self-sufficiency. We actually started utilizing the bridge more recently during intake, and then we revisit 6 months into the relationship, and really as a way to focus conversations during coaching. But the idea was that if we were looking at families' progress across these 4 pillars, we can really say that we are making a difference and supporting those families to move towards economic independence, which is ultimately the goal that we have as an organization and through our program. Lastly, I do want to emphasize that some of the things that we learned was the importance of having this holistic approach and wraparound services during the pandemic. When we had to close our early childhood education programs and all of our on-site programs, having this structure was really critical because we were able to provide wraparound services to parents. We were able to kind of shift our focus to how do we support the whole family, maintain that connection, and really help our parents as they were managing this very stressful and strange situation that we're all in. But one of the things that we learned through the pandemic, oh, I'm on the next slide, Barbara, sorry. One of the things that we learned was that we also needed to have programming that provided direct supports to our family. So while coaching and income supports, they're about the relationship and really supporting families to leverage these benefits and resources, we didn't really have any programming that supported the families directly and timely. So we established a food distribution program. We ran it through the closure, and we relaunched it when we reopened some of our programs. And the idea was to help fight food insecurity, which was something that we noticed was a huge impediment during the pandemic, and something that a lot of our families were struggling with by giving them weekly deliveries of fresh produce. So that's a program that we're still offering to our families, and we've had about 172 families participate in the program on a weekly basis. Next, please. Another program that we launched during the pandemic was a mini grants program. And this came because as we were supporting families in leveraging public benefits and in connecting them to resources, we realized that there was a lag between when they applied for a benefit and when the benefit became available. And there were times when the families really needed the financial support. So the mini grant program was born out of that desire to how do we support families in the moment while still having these conversations around coaching, while still helping them and supporting them as they leverage public benefits, but that we are being cognizant that sometimes people need that immediate support in order to be able to focus on other things. And then similarly, we continue virtual coaching and income supports. During the closure, we actually cross-trained 13 of our staff that had sort of become available due to the closure of our program to serve as family support advocates, which is what we were calling mobility mentors technically. to really be able to provide like weekly check-ins with our families, to be able to establish or continue that connection, and then to allow us to then start talking to the families about, now that we've been able to support you in leveraging this benefit, and now that, you know, food insecurity might not be a barrier, what are some things that we can do to get you to a better place once the economy opens up, when things start getting back to normal or the new normal? What are some changes that we need to make, and what are some things that you and your family are thinking about that we can support you through? And one of the things that I think was really meaningful was the income supports program, because in FY20, we were able to leverage around $300,000 in public benefits for our participants, which was huge. And I think a testament to a lot of the work that we had been doing and the relationships that we had established with our families. Thank you.
Okay, so we have time for a few questions. If anyone wants to do a question verbally, right now would be the time. And other questions we have on that. Okay, so we have a question that's asking, can you give some examples of the things families got help with from the mini grant?
Absolutely, yes. So we supported families with rent payments, purchasing food, utility payments. The mini grant program, the way that it worked was that we paid directly the vendors. So families told us what they needed support with, and our average grant was around $250.
I think we can take one more question if anyone has one. Oh, there's one more question. So this one is for Kelly. Are you able to share the curriculum you use to incorporate EF in the pillars for the 10-week courses, or are there resources you use for videos? And I think, oh, she answered it already. So she entered her email, and she said they're developing the curriculum as they go. I don't think there's any more questions in the chat. So I'm gonna thank all the presenters for sharing your work with us today. And I'm gonna thank everyone for joining us for this program highlight sessions. Make sure that you join us for the virtual networking sessions directly following this presentation. You're gonna find all the links and everything you need to join us in the Whova app. This is the last day of the convening, but EMPath is not done yet. You can also join us for the Disrupting Poverty Cycle Conference that starts tomorrow. And you can learn more and register if you haven't at www.disruptingpovertyconference.org. And yes, for those of you who are interested, I believe this session will be shared through the portal on the exchange. And this is also recorded, so I'm sure they'll be sharing it either on the app or through the portal on the exchange for those of you that are interested. Yep, and Rashima just confirmed that the slides will be available through the portal, and you can also email the exchange. All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.